T minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. All three engines up and burning. 2, 1, 0, and liftoff.
Coach on Fire Radio.
Hi, everyone. Welcome again to another edition of the Greatness Movement podcast. I'm your host, Kenny Weiss. I'm a life coach, speaker, author, and founder of the Greatness Movement based here in Phoenix. The goal here each week is to create a movement of people who are passionate about self-awareness and wanting real answers. They want to move past the superficial buzzwords that are so prevalent in this industry. They want to go deeper. They want to live in their greatness. Hey, Roy, or Kip, sorry. Good to see you. Thanks for tuning in. Remember, for those of you that are just tuning in right now, please share the show. I mean, the only way we can get this movement to grow is if other people know about it. So please, if you're on Facebook, send out a request to your friends to tune into the show. Let other people know about it. Share it on your own Facebook page. Also, if you ever miss the live version here at Sunday nights, the video portion, you can catch the show on Spreaker, iTunes, and iHeart. Just look for the Greatness Movement podcast. You can also subscribe to my YouTube channel. Just look up Kenny Weiss. I download all of the shows onto my YouTube channel. So by all means do that. And subscribe to the Greatness Movement website. Just go to the main page, scroll down to the bottom. Subscribe to it, and that way you can be kept abreast of everything we're doing. For instance, this week we have our next event Thursday at 6:30 p.m. at Ability 360. It's basically right next to the airport, so centrally located. We are going to help you conquer stress, fear, anxiety, and depression, something we all struggle with. You may not be struggling with it right now in this moment, but everybody goes through it. So it's high. The whole presentation is primarily about solutions. And especially if you're taking medication for any of those issues, you're not dealing with the problem. And that's what tonight's show is going to be about. See, we as a society don't like to deal with the problem. We like to argue about the symptoms or try and medicate the symptoms. For instance, if you're on any sort of medication for depression or anxiety or stress, all you're doing is covering over the cause of the depression, the stress, and anxiety. See, the way pills work, I wasn't really going to talk about this, but I guess this is probably the way to do it. If you're on any sort of medication, here's how medication works. You have a cell, all right? And basically, let's say they're on a cell, they're what called receptor sites, okay? Let's just keep it simple. Let's say there are 100 of them, all right? So if you're feeling stress, anxiety, or depression, what's happening is, we'll say 50 or let's say 70 of those receptor sites are turned on, and they're firing the feeling of anxiety, the feeling of stress, the feeling of depression, okay? So the way pills work, all medication, is they come in and they sit over top of those receptor sites. They attach to them and they try to shut them down so that you don't feel it. Here's the problem. The pill doesn't attach to just the receptor, just those 70 receptor sites that are turned on. It also attaches to the other 30 receptor sites, which have nothing to do with depression or anxiety or stress. So what happens is it turns those receptor sites on. That's what side effects are. I find it fascinating. Everybody loves to go to a doctor and thinks medicine is the answer to everything. And yet, if you watch any TV commercial for any medication that's out there, the side effects are worse than what they're trying to treat. It's insane in our society. And this is the denial that we are all in, that we are stuck in. Patty Ann, I'm not saying people should get off their medication. Medication is a great starting point, but medication is not the answer. All right. Medication doesn't, in most cases, do not heal the problem. All it does is cover up the symptoms. And Patty, if you do the research, you'll see that there's some great books out there that see we've been conditioned by the drug companies to buy their drugs. Again, I am not saying don't take medicine. I never tell a client, I never tell anyone, get off your medication. What I am saying is until you deal with the emotions that are creating the chemical imbalances, see, you have to become an expert in this stuff, Patty. And unfortunately, you're just taking the drug prescriptions and the doctor's word for it, but you haven't done the research. Think of it every time you go into a doctor's office. They walk in with a prescription pad. They spend about 3 minutes. They write you a script. Yet every doctor knows, and the science is out there, that if you're having any sort of illness or disease, it's emotion based. Yet, so they're covering up, they're dealing with the symptoms, not the cause. So if you're struggling with anxiety, depression, any of those things, until you deal with the emotions, with the trauma that you suffered that's causing it, for the most part, you're wasting your time. Every single antidepressant out there does not cure depression. The second you stop taking it, all the symptoms come right back up. That's clinically proven. Every single antidepressant that's out there has the exact same efficacy, meaning within 0.02% as sugar pill. The thing is when they give you the pill, you psychosomatically feel like it's the answer. And so it might, in some cases, make you feel better. So I don't want to get in an argument about drugs and all of that. But what I am saying is until you do the research, and if you want, you're right, Patty, I don't know what your knowledge is. And what I am saying is I would agree with you, Patty Ann. I'm not saying get off your medicine. What I am saying is if you're relying on medicine, yeah, see, she just left the conversation because, see, that's denial. She doesn't want to face that see, we hold on to our victimhood. We have to, for most people, we have to be sick and hurt because it gives us power. And that way we don't have to take responsibility that we're causing it and that we're the sole creator of it. And that's why I wanted to talk about this with the latest shootings and the politics. That's what we do. It's like, I'm at Patty Ann, I'm going to skip gears here. And I appreciate your comments, Patty Ann. I love it. I love that it's difficult here because I don't have you in front of me. So we're both, I have to admit, Patty Ann, I'm making some assumptions based on the words you're choosing. So I don't know everything about you. What I am trying to do is take the comments that you're making and make a generalization. So let me make that clear. The science is, well, I have to say it this way. Based on the science we have up to this point, which is always changing, we keep learning and growing. The science that we know about up to this point is that for the most part, drugs make the problems worse. They don't heal them. They actually create more problems. That's scientifically proven. So we also have enough proof to know that emotion drives illness and disease. That's the primary cause. It's what creates the chemical imbalance in the brain and the body. And when you fire different emotions, you change the chemical balance, and that's what cures the illness and disease. Now, there are some people, because of how DNA works, all DNA is the repeated firing of an emotion. That's what creates DNA. So if you were born with a health condition, what that means is you were born with emotions that your parents fired or grandparents. It's in your family tree. Your family is stuck firing an emotion and it keeps getting transferred. And I'll get to why this is a problem. And so we get stuck in it and you get born with those receptor sites, all of them turned on. That's why you are born with this condition. All right. So that's basically how it works. So that's the point I want to get to. I want to bring up a bunch of issues. We had another shooting in the last week. And I saw all over Facebook how everyone thinks we have to legislate guns and, outlaw guns. And I don't care about guns. If you want everyone to have bazookas and tanks in their house, fine with me. If you want to banish guns off the face of the earth, fine with me. I don't care. Personally, guns scare the hell out of me. But guns aren't the problem. They're not the problem. They never have been the problem. A gun just sits there until a broken human being picks it up. That's the cause. See, it's just like illness. The cause is emotion. But we don't want to talk about that. We want to medicate the symptoms, just like people killing each other. We want to argue about the symptoms, about gun legislation. It's a waste of time. What you have is a broken human being, someone who's broken emotionally, who's picking up the gun. But we don't want to do that because then we'd have to look at us. I was talking with someone about this earlier today, and they're like, well, don't you think the world would be better if it wasn't so accessible? Well, okay, what happened with drugs? Remember when in the 80s, they clamped down on the drugs? Got worse. Remember in the 30s, 1930s, when they abolished alcohol? People who are broken emotionally will use drugs, alcohol, pills, guns, whatever it is. Food is the number one health crisis, the number one tool people medicate with. I mean, that's why everyone's obese. A diet, for the most part, is a waste of time because you're dealing with the symptom, not the cause. People eat because of emotions. They don't eat because they're hungry. They eat because they're trapped in something. And so they're trying to medicate it, whether it was sexual abuse they went through, emotional abuse, whatever. They're medicating with food. That's why our society is massively overweight. Yet every program out there is exercise, diet, eat this food, eat that food. I'm not saying it wouldn't help you to eat so-called healthy, but here's the other thing I know when you do the research. There's a reason, like for myself, when I eat healthy, my brain and body shut down. Because of my trauma history, the chemical concoction that my brain and body basically developed as a result of the trauma, I learned to survive off of sugar. Okay. So when I take sugar and stuff like that out of my diet and I eat healthy, I literally collapse. Like I can't operate in my life. I would have to, I don't know that I could ever switch into a new diet that was, devout of it, all of that. Like everyone's saying, oh my God, we have to get all the chemicals and everything out of things. I don't disagree, but I know this based on your trauma history, people are drawn to certain foods. Like I know this, if you like whiskey, if you like fruits more than chocolate, people who've been primarily abandoned will love chocolate, very sweet things. People who are primarily suffocated and enmeshed as a child, they'll like very bland, more like fruits, cheesecake, things like that. They'll also drink hard liquor. It's what their brain and body, their chemistry reaches for. So that's the thing. When you look at how all this stuff works, okay, yeah, see, it just breaks my heart. It breaks my heart that everyone wants to argue over symptoms, politics. I did a Facebook post, a month or so back with the whole Kavanaugh hearings. And the whole country was in an uproar. And one side is like, well, one side is like, look, he's been accused, but all of his accusers have been proven to, be liars. Or at least, one accuser, all of her witnesses said it didn't happen. So one side is going, this is criminal what they're doing to him. He's such a nice man and there's no proof. And, he's obviously guilty. we have to believe the victim, whether there's proof or not. He's an evil person. And there was a stretch there where there were all these accusations, and like, because there's been several accusations, it must be true. Well, now they've all been proven false, but it doesn't matter. Here's the problem. Let's say, like, I don't care if he did or didn't do it. I'm not picking a side. If you're listening to this, whichever side you're on, don't get caught up on commenting about which side you're on. Ignore that. Let's talk about the problem, the real problem. See, the country, both sides, Republicans, Democrats, independents, men, women, black, white, Latin, everybody wanted to argue over whether he did or didn't do it. Complete freaking waste of time. Massive denial. Because let's look at it. Let's say he did it. Let's say he raped her. Okay? Even if you're on the side that says there's no possible way he did it, bear with me, please. Let's assume he did it. Let's say something came out tomorrow, there are fingerprints and a rape kit, and there's dead certain proof he did it. Okay? Why did he do it? Why does anyone rape somebody? Why? Because either they were raped themselves, they went through horrific abuse that hasn't been treated, and they're acting it out. The problem is that he went through trauma that he never dealt with. That's the cause. Now, let's say you're on the other side. Let's say you believe her and he's the devil and he should be impeached and all of that. Okay. Sure. Or, wrong. I just did that side. Let's take the other side. And you're like, no, he's a saint. He's perfect. She's a liar. Everyone's proven she's wrong. And let's say tomorrow there's total proof. She comes out and confesses that she was completely lying. Well, why did she lie? Why? Again, because she went through horrific trauma and she'd be looking for attention and everything. What's the cause? In both cases, both individuals went through horrific trauma. Yet we have a society that doesn't want to deal with it. We want the magic pill. We want to go to the doctor and not face our own trauma history. People don't want to come to the greatness movement events and learn about all of this stuff. They don't want to look at themselves and see, oh my God, I'm the problem. Because in that situation with the Kavanaugh hearings, one of them started all of it because of trauma. That's the cause. And nobody wants to deal with it. Now you get the whole Me Too generation. The whole topic gets diverted and the country's at odds. Yet if we had a country, a world, which is what I'm trying to advocate in the greatness movement, that our first instinct 36 years ago, if either one had been through that trauma, that their first instinct and society's acceptance that we all go through trauma and we need to overcome it, 36 years ago, that would have been dealt with. We never would have had this situation. That's the answer, people. That's the answer. Quit arguing over the symptoms. Quit arguing over whether we should have guns or not guns. You're wasting your time. It's a disgrace. If you want to argue for something, if you want to make change, real change in this world, let's start dealing with the cause. The border issue. If you want complete open borders, fine with me. I don't care. If you want a wall 1,000 feet high, fine with me. I don't care. What's the issue? Everybody's saying, oh my God, isn't it awful that we're separating these parents from their kids? We're not doing it. Those parents, before they ever cross the border, know they're breaking the law and their family might get separated. They're doing it to themselves. They are their own cause. Now, if you don't like that law, like there's a law. If you think that's inhumane, okay, I'm fine. I don't care about the law. You're arguing about the symptom. Fine, go waste your time arguing about the symptom. I'll let you get a petition together, go around, get everyone to sign it that they shouldn't do that. Awesome. I'll abide by the law if it means that much to you. I don't care. If you want to spend your life arguing over symptoms, knock yourself out. I want to deal with the cause. I want solutions. I want answers. I want to change the world. You're not going to change the world by ignoring a law that exists. Well, then do I get to ignore a law? Because that's what you're saying. I don't like this law. It's inhumane. Sanctuary cities, all that stuff. Okay. I don't disagree. I love the compassion. That's wonderful. But it's a law. So everyone gets to choose which laws work. Let me know how that works out. Look, well, we already know how it's working out. That's what's happening right now. We have laws in place and people don't follow them. And so we want to put more laws in place. We want to restrict them more. It's not the answer. First thing you have to do is hold people accountable. If they break the law, or do something, you hold them accountable. But we think that's mean. I got into a discussion. It was hysterical. I was at a networking thing and they brought up customer service. And this person had gone on vacation and they went to a winery and they'd gotten all this wine. And the person who was helping them told them about a way they could manipulate the system and get the wine delivered, because they didn't deliver to the US. They only delivered within Canada. Well, the person who sold them the wine gave them a backdoor way to break that rule. And so they went the next day to pay for their wine and pick it up and get it shipped. Well, the person at the counter said, yeah, you can't do that. They held them accountable and they were all pissed off. They're going, well, that's terrible customer service. See, that's the society we've set up. Is now we've enabled victimhood. We've enabled people to set up their own dysfunction. And now you're a bad person if you hold them accountable. That's the problem. That's the cause. In our effort to be nice, we're abusing people. This couple was abusing the rules and they felt hurt. They were entitled to get free shipping. You're not entitled. That's how the company makes their money, so that you can drink that wonderful wine. It's flabbergasting to me. And that's, again, they want to argue about the symptom, not the cause. I see somebody here has mentioned they've been to a very dark place. And it's scary. They don't feel like they can talk about it. Yeah. That's the answer, though. The answer is to be able to talk about it. Why do you think my whole life story and what a train wreck I am is all over the internet? My life's a disgrace. But I have a quote. When you learn to forgive yourself, they can't hurt you with it anymore. You see, that's the problem in society. We don't want to see how dark and awful we all are. And every one of us is awful. Everyone. I had a discussion. I got interviewed earlier this week on a show. And when the show was over, the commentator, he says, does everyone have darkness in them? And I'm like, oh God, yes. It's unavoidable because we've all been through trauma, usually at the hands of our parents. And that's scientifically proven. We've all suffered massive trauma. We are all horrifically broken, not just a little bit, a lot. But there's such a lack of emotional intelligence and awareness in our society because we don't talk about those things. Nobody knows. They don't even know how, like, Watch my Facebook feed. Watch when I post questions and people's responses. They expose their brokenness and they don't even think they're doing it. It's fascinating. It breaks my heart how much pain people are in, and they don't have to be. But see, remember how, for those of you in the older age gap, you grew up like me in a society where you didn't talk about your feelings. Remember what the adage was: don't talk about it, don't deal with it, don't let anyone know about your demons. Remember, you had to put on a happy face. I mean, books, everything. That's how we were all trained for centuries. Is you don't. I was watching a thing on Watergate, and they're showing all these clips, and they showed Edwin Muskie. He was running against Nixon, and his wife got unfairly attacked, and he got very emotional, and it was fascinating to watch the TV commentator. They switched to him, and they said, yes, he obviously doesn't have the deportment to be a president because he couldn't control his emotions. People, do you realize that every single thought and choice you ever make is based on what you feel? All we are ever doing is satisfying our feelings. Our whole life is predicated on what we feel. The way our brain works, the way we process information, the first place, whether you touch something, you see it, you smell it, you hear it, you feel it, anything. Every bit of information you ever take in hits the backside of your brain first. It's called your thalamus. It's the emotional center of your brain. I'm not going to get into the mechanics of it. My book describes it. But it hits a couple of emotional centers first before it does anything. Before it even gets to logic, the information that's sent to the logic centers of our brain, it's sent with an emotional component to it already. Based on your trauma history, you will take information in and process it intellectually based on feelings you've already had and life experiences you've already had. That's why people are so stuck, is because, like, I bring this stuff up and people want to argue with me. They can't even hear me because the information hits them and it brings up trauma, and they're in massive denial. They don't have the skills and tools to move through it. So their reaction becomes one of denial. They stay entrenched in their belief. They won't move out of it because we don't teach any of this stuff. And did you ever take a single class growing up on how emotions worked in your brain and body? On parenting? On how to have a relationship? No, none of us did. It's disgusting. It's thoroughly disgusting. Yet, this is a perfect example of how important the greatness movement is and why you need to join it. I tell this story in my book. There's a girl who for a long time was cutting my hair, and I'd go in to see her, and I'd get my hair cut once a month, and she'd always tell me about her boyfriends, guys she was dating, what jerks they were, and all these stories. And over time she learned what I did, and she'd kind of ask questions here and there, and I'd seen her enough that it was appropriate. I wouldn't say this to a stranger, but finally, one day I went in to get my hair cut, and she's telling me about the latest guy who was a jerk. And I turned to her and I said, April, would you let me cut your hair? Hands on her hips. She looks at me. She goes, do you know how? And I'm like, well, no. She's like, you ever take a class? I'm like, no, but I'm 50 at the time. I think I was 50 years old. I was like, I'm 50 years old. I've been watching people cut my hair for 40 some years. I have a pretty good idea how to do it. And she's like, but you've never taken a class? I'm like, no. She's like, You're crazy. I'm not letting you anywhere near my hair. And I looked at her and I said, April, I find it fascinating. Your hair, something that no matter how badly I butcher it, will grow back perfectly on its own. Not just you, but the government demands I get a license before I even get near it. And there's nothing I can do to it that'll destroy it. But I couldn't even come near your hair without a license. But to be a parent, to have a relationship, we don't learn a goddamn thing. And everybody, the second I say that, gets defensive. Well, I don't need to know. Why? Because you watched your parents? Oh. So it's okay for you to sit and watch people who weren't taught either, who were dysfunctional and abusive towards you. That's enough for you? What do you do for work? Did you go to college? Did you take a trade class? Did you get certified? Isn't it fascinating? Our society. Now, I'm not advocating that you need a certification of how to have a relationship or how to be a parent. I'm not looking for more legislation. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is we as a society go into massive denial that we are the problem. Instead, we argue over the symptoms. We argue over guns. We argue over the border. We argue over pills and medicine. We argue over all the wrong things. We have a bias against looking at ourselves and realizing we're the problem. Every single time. Every time. We set it up. We don't want that because look at our culture. We reward the victim. If you're sick and hurt, everybody comes to your rescue. I learned that at 18 years old. See, my mom, for those of you who read my book, I woke up middle of the night to find my mom passed out naked on the toilet. She was an alcoholic. And because we as a society have a bias against reaching out for help, talking about our demons, my mom was broken. My mom was adopted, been molested, been through hell. But you're not allowed to talk about that. Someone else earlier, what did they say? Oh, yeah, I have this dark thing. I can't tell anyone. That's what's killing people. The inability to tell people about your demons. That's the problem. That's the cause of every single societal issue out there. The inability to go right up to somebody and go, you know what? Sometimes I'm really manipulative. Let me tell you how. Let me tell you how. Read the foreword to my book or the dedication. The first thing I say, I dedicate the book to several people, and then I dedicate it to myself for my willingness to admit and pursue how absolutely narcissistic and manipulative I can be. Like I'm awful, horrifically awful. But that's what makes me so happy is I found it. I reconciled it. And so when I see how imperfect I am, I can admit it. It's like the lady earlier that we were talking about the drugs. I realized I was making assumptions about her. See, I was able to immediately go, you know what? She's right. I didn't have to defend anything. I don't have an ego that's fighting for you to have an image of me. I don't need you to have an image of me. I know who I am. I know how messed up I am. I know how great I am. What makes me great is my willingness to accept how absolutely broken I am. What keeps people from being great is their unwillingness to see how broken they are. That's what's killing society. The bias for us to admit and pursue and become an expert in how dysfunctional we all are. The world will never change until that becomes the priority. That's what the greatness movement is about. Anyway, I'm getting off on all these tangents. Let me finish the one about illness and everything, and why we play the victim. After I found my mom, I spent 6-8 years in and out of hospitals, broken bones, stomach and back issues. I'd be in traction for months, not months, a month. All these tests, they could never find out. And most of you who are sick and hurt, how many times do you go to the doctor and they run these tests and they can't find it? Almost always. Almost always. And you're telling your friends on Facebook and everywhere, oh, we still aren't sure what the problem is. That's because the problem isn't physical, it's emotional, just like it was with me. I finally figured that out. And here's why we get sick and hurt. Here's why we have bad relationships, bad jobs, because it gives us power. Because when I found my mom passed out, I lost all power. I felt inadequate. I felt rejected. I felt powerless. I was victimized by my mother. She didn't mean to. My mother was broken, but because as a society we won't deal with our brokenness, she passed it on to me. Wasn't her intent, but she did. So you know what I did the next 6 to 8 years? I was in and out of hospitals constantly. The last time my so-called back went out, I was in the garage, fell, and I'm screaming at my mom because my crutches are in the rafters. And I need her to get them down for me. And finally I scream out, you selfish son of a blank. When will you stay sober long enough to help me? In that moment, I went ice cold because I realized that day was the one and only time my mom was drunk whenever I got sick and hurt. See, I made myself sick and hurt to get my mom to be a mother to me. It worked. And that's what you're doing. If you're sick and hurt and your life sucks, that's what you're doing. You're getting everybody else to take care of you. You're getting tons of attention just like I did. And until you become an expert in how you're doing it, you'll continue. I can't tell you, it was fascinating. You know, obviously I have the event next week about stress, anxiety, fear, depression. I sent out a private message to someone inviting them, and they wrote back, oh, no. Yeah, my life is great. I don't struggle with any of this. My issue is fear. And I kindly replied, did you see that the whole event is all about fear? They aren't coming. See, she doesn't want to let go of her fear. She wants to stay the victim because even in there, she got my attention. She got to reply, oh, fear. And what she was hoping for was for me to then chase down her fear. What is it? Let me help you. She wanted to suck me in to fix her problem. I can't tell you how many people try that on me, whether it's directly on my Facebook page or private message me. I don't. I won't abuse you that way. I won't abuse you the way society is. I will love you enough not to do that to you anymore. I never had back or stomach issues after that day. All of them went away. They disappeared because I finally dealt with the problem. The problem was I was manipulating my mother to keep her sober by getting sick and hurt. I see it all the time. People get married and immediately, like within the first month, all of a sudden somebody gets a chronic illness. They're so afraid of intimacy, they get sick immediately. So now the husband or wife has to take care of them. Happens all the time. You see it. Look at what happens in relationships. People start dating, they both gain weight. They both start victimizing themselves. They both start, it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. The signs. I spent the weekend talking with somebody about all this stuff. And they're like, God, every time I try and argue with you, you're right. See, that's when I knew, when I came out of my suicide stuff and I sat down and I went to my office and I said, I want to come up with a protocol that nobody else has discovered that'll fundamentally change society. And when I finished my book, I started arguing with it and I got chills. I went, I did it. The second you argue with any aspect of the cycle I talk about in my book, you prove it. That book shows how every single person listening or not listening to this show lives their life. I can prove it to you, anybody. I can show you. You're all stuck in the worst day cycle. Every one of you, everyone in this world. And until we deal with it, all these problems that you are spending your time writing about on Facebook or volunteering for the most part, it's a waste of time because you're not dealing with the cause. Until we get this information out and we teach people to become an expert in their trauma, it's a waste of time. It'll continue because we're not dealing with the cause. It's time we deal with the cause, people. Let's deal with the cause. Like, come on. Think of that. That's something to volunteer for. That's something to get behind. Give people the skills and tools to deal with the trauma and pain that everyone's in and the darkness we all live with. Give them the tools to become an expert in it and overcome it so that they can teach it to somebody else. Then you don't have to abuse somebody because you don't hate yourself. That's all abuse is when you abuse other people, is you hate yourself. Trump, Clinton, I don't care. I mean, I find it fascinating. Everyone hates Trump. I mean, I'm not denying he's boorish and, you know, some of his comments are just hideous, but he's, as my mom used to say, he's crazy as a fox. He has people so diverted in what a pig he is. He does that so he can get things done. But people are so immature, they don't see it. They want to get caught up in the symptoms, not the cause. Now, he does do some things that are horrible as a person. So do you. Why don't we all deal with that? The only reason he's doing it is because of trauma he's been through and he doesn't have the skills, tools, and knowledge to get through it. See, I don't judge him. My heart goes out to him. And if you're a Democrat, the people that you believe in do the exact same thing. Hillary Clinton is just as evil and disgusting as Donald Trump. I mean, look at what she did to the women her husband raped. And now look at her, she completely opposite behavior for Kavanaugh. That's a Trump behavior. Everybody's the same. That's the thing. We're all broken. We're all disgusting. It's wonderful when you accept it. See, I don't need to hide anything from you now. Now you may hide from me. It's okay. I see it, but I don't need you to change. I'll let you stay there, but I won't join you in it. And I sure as hell won't let you suck me into it and enable it. I'll love you. I will love you and let you stay right where you are, manipulative and all of that stuff. I will let you do it. I will let you have that journey. I just won't join you in it. I posted, what's your biggest block this week? And somebody turned it on me and said, what about you, Kenny? And I said, you know, my biggest block is trying to find a way to communicate what the greatness movement is about and how it can change people's lives. And somebody else replied, well, what is the greatness movement? And in that moment, I think I got as close to understanding what it is the greatness movement is really about. And yes, Patty Ann, everybody is the same in that they've all been through trauma. How they express that trauma and act it out is different. But yes, everybody is the same. Everybody's stuck in this cycle. Read my book, do the research, you'll see it. We all live the cycle. Every one of us. Now, how we act it out is different. The point is this: every one of us has suffered trauma. We all act out the trauma in certain ways. They're not the exact same ways, but yes, you'll see when you do the work. The human organism has a consistent pattern, just like every other organism out there. We're all the same, but we have subtleties of how we exercise our sameness. It's a completely different topic. I can't educate. Please do the research, read my book, read all this stuff, go on the journey, and you'll see it. That's the difficulty I have with a lot of this stuff, is people haven't gone far enough. So I alienate a lot of people because I'm speaking a language they don't understand. And that's my responsibility. It's not theirs. It's my responsibility to find a way to communicate this stuff so that people understand. They're not the problem. Do you see that? People that disagree with me. Anyway, different topic. Let me get back on to what the greatness movement is about. We all love movies. We all love sporting events. And there's a reason for it. We all want to watch the hero. Think of every movie, right? Every character goes on some sort of hero's journey. And think of your favorite movie. At some point, we discover they're broken. They have some sort of problem within themselves and something disgusting they don't want other people to know about, but people find out. They're frail, they're inadequate. And then somewhere along the way, the plot introduce a guide, somebody to help them overcome that pain, that trauma, that inadequacy, gives them strength and hope and the ability to persevere through their brokenness. And the culmination of the story is always that at some point, the hero recognizes their imperfection and they accept it. They embrace it. And at that point, they usually say goodbye to the guide that helped them discover it. And they step into their greatness. They've now become the hero. And we watch all of that. And then usually the sequel then has them become the guide to somebody else. Now they're the hero and they teach the hero's journey as a guide to the next person. We watch sporting events because think of it, sports is the same thing. The quarterback, the pitcher, whatever. They're the hero, they're the guide, and the coach comes out and gives them wisdom and rallies them in the fourth quarter. Or a receiver makes a great play and becomes the guide for the team, you know? And we all watch that because we all desperately crave to be the hero in our life. And that's why we spend billions of dollars on sports and movies, as we all crave to be the hero of our own life. But remember what I said earlier, none of us take a single class to learn how to be a hero. None of us. We think it's our parents, but our parents are the ones who victimized us. And if you think your parents didn't victimize you, please, it's not possible. It's not possible. Humans are imperfect. Even the so-called best parent hurt you. That's life. So if you haven't reconciled those hurts, anyway, if somebody says my parents were great, that tells me how broken they are. If they said, yeah, my parents were perfect, that tells me how much denial they're in and how much work they have in front of them. It's a defense mechanism they use to survive. And it breaks my heart. It's what everyone does. It's part of the cycle I talk about. See, nobody's different. Everyone does that exact same thing. It's how we all survive the trauma. But nobody's taught us how to move past it. There's never been a guide to do that. Well, that's the greatness movement. That's the whole point of the greatness movement, is to create a shift in society where everyone has a guide, goes through the hero's journey, and then becomes the guide for the next person. That's what the greatness movement is about. And that's what I'm trying to do. For us to stop arguing about the symptoms and start choosing the hero's journey so we can all become guides and deal with the cause. And until we do that, the gun shootings and all of that, they'll continue. It's a waste of time. And let's face it too. Arguing over guns right now is a waste of time. Only a couple hundred people die a year over the mass shootings. Okay, maybe call it 1,000 if you take the world. You know what? In a day, thousands of people die from drinking. We're just numb to it. We think it's socially acceptable to be an alcoholic. Our whole culture celebrates being an alcoholic and a drug addict. We reward it. So quit making guns such an issue. Again, I don't care. Get to the cause. Quit making alcohol the issue. Quit making suicide the issue. Why? That's another thing that's everyone's all hot and heavy about suicide. Why do people commit suicide? Because they never had a guide teach them how to problem solve. So in that moment, they don't have the skills, tools, or knowledge. They don't have coping skills to overcome the tremendous pain they're in. And I was suicidal. I was there. I know. What saved my life is I had worked my butt off in counseling for years. So every justification I tried to come up with, I knew was BS. I had a guide, my counselor. I went out and sought a guide. The shift in the culture needs to be that every single one of us looks for a guide. It doesn't have to be me. It doesn't have to be the greatness movement. But if you don't have a guide in your life, you're not living the hero's journey. You're not walking in your greatness. It's impossible. You're too close to the situation to see your dysfunction. You have to get a guide if you want to walk in the hero's journey, if you want to be the hero in your life. And we have a society that says, oh, no, I can do it alone. I don't need someone. The bias. So my guide was a guy named Mike Pinkston. And brilliant man. And I outgrew him. It was so fascinating to me the day I realized that after the suicide stuff, and I was still struggling with my divorce, and I'd go to write him an email. And as I'd write it, I'd go, oh my God, he doesn't have the answer. And I remember getting ice cold, and I went, I do. And I realized while he was a great guide, he never taught me that piece. He never taught me what happens when you outgrow the guide. I don't know if he knew it. I don't know if he ever figured that part out himself. But I vowed when I did this work, I will teach people that at some point, my hope is every single person I ever come in contact with someday outgrows me and looks at me and goes, Kenny doesn't quite get it yet. He doesn't have the answer to this. That was another thing, part of the conversation with this person this weekend. I was talking about why we all need to become an expert in our darkness, because that's where freedom is. I said, I hope I wake up 5 years from now and go, the book I wrote, even though I know it's groundbreaking, I know it explains everything that we know about human society and why it's a mess better than anyone's ever written. I know it. It describes the human condition better than any book out there that's ever been written. I know it. And as I said to this person, I said, I hope I wake up in 5 years and look at that book and go, man, that was a pile of garbage. I was so full of it. It's not even close. And they're like, why? Wouldn't you be upset? And I said, see, that's society's normal reaction. You'd be upset. That would mean you're not good enough. But see, I've already reconciled how imperfect I am. I want to find out even more how imperfect I am, because the more I find out how screwed up I am, the more freedom I get. See, everyone else here is afraid that people will find out how imperfect they are. You're in prison. All of you are in hell because you hide your imperfections. You don't want anyone to know that you're drinking at night, popping pills, your marriage sucks, you're broke, you're about to lose your house. You're in prison. I'm free. Because I admittedly tell you everything about how disgusting I am. That's what makes me beautiful. That's what makes me great. Life, the answer to life is in the opposite of what we've all been told. We've all been told, hide it. No, get it out there, honey. Give it, show it, let everybody see it. But to do that, you have to dig in on yourself, find it in yourself, and reconcile it with you. And that's what happens when you see it. You're like, oh my God, I've been hiding this from myself. Once I realized, oh my God, I thought I was this nice person. I tell the story in the book. We're almost out of time, so I'm just going to short circuit it. But I thought I'd met this person for coffee. They gutted their whole life story to me. I thought I was this great, wonderful person because people tell me their life story. And aren't I great that she opened up to me, blah, blah, blah. And isn't it wonderful? And I'm out for a walk that night. And I realized, I asked myself, what is it I like so much about that? And I heard myself say, it gives me power. And I paused, like I was walking, and I like stopped. And I'm like, what? It gives me power. And I buckled. I broke over. Like, we've all had shame, like, oh, why'd I do that? This was in guilt, both at the same time. It's a horrific, like, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed. It was so severe. I buckled. I realized in that moment, I'm a predator. See, all my life, within seconds, people have told me their life story, even before I did this. Things they always, I can't tell you how many times people have gone, I've never told anybody this before. Like, it's all day, every day, even when I was younger. Or going to people's houses and they say, you have to be careful. The dog or cat hates men. And the dog or cat runs right up to me and jumps in my lap. I've always had this ability to draw people in and have them expose their deepest, darkest secrets. And I thought it was because I was nice. What I realized was, in that moment, as I watched her walk away, I remember seeing her and she was completely distraught. I did not make her life better. If you've ever seen the old movie, The Predator, it was a shoot 'em up Schwarzenegger, silly movie. It was about an alien that came down and these army guys were on a deserted island. And the way the Predator survived is it would take these guys and it would consume them, suck everything out of them and just leave the skeleton. And I realized, oh my God, that's what I do to people. I suck the life out of them emotionally to feed my own emotions, my need, my narcissistic need to be nice and caring and loving. I never knew that. And I see it all the time. People trying to be nice on the internet. They say, oh, I couldn't do that. That's mean. And they're predators just like me. They don't know it, though. They don't know it. The beauty of that is, now that I know it, I know that those thoughts and that desire comes from the right side. Always. The thought, it always comes from this side. It comes from my father and my grandfather. That's who, remember, emotions, personality, it's all passed down. Your DNA is just emotion that's been fired. This is a family trait, to suck the emotional life out of people. My grandfather basically started the whole Dale Carnegie win friends and influence people west of the Mississippi. He did what I did, but he beat the hell out of my father. He was a predator. Now, I didn't beat my kids, but this was my version of it. It's DNA, same emotions. So now that I'm aware of it, I tell a story in the book too of how a woman, she didn't realize it, but I did. She started telling me at the end of a speech, a very deep, dark, personal thing. It wasn't appropriate for the speech. Subconsciously, she saw me as a predator and she wanted me to victimize her. She wanted me to do it in front of everybody. And that voice from the side of my head came in and was like, oh man, this is perfect. You can show people how gifted you are. You can literally spin that. Like, I was so excited because I could show how gifted I was and how broken she was. I could use her as a pawn in front of everybody, and nobody would know but me. But see, since I saw my darkness, since I saw how imperfect I am, I didn't do it. I'm running out of time. I'm not going to finish the story. Read the book if you want to read how I did it in the true loving way. And that's the problem in society. Nobody wants to go there. Nobody wants to tell you that that's what they do, that they're a predator or that they're awful. That's the answer. I'm free. So if you criticize me, here's what I know. When you criticize me, all you're telling me is about your own brokenness. That's how it works. That's why I'm free. Because once I could see how broken I was, I could see whenever I hated somebody, the reason I hated them or judged them was because they were me. And so now that I love me, I don't have to hate you like all the people who hate Trump, all the people who hate Clinton, all these fights. What you're seeing is people who hate themselves projecting it at the other side. And until we as a society start searching for a guide to help us on the hero's journey, this fighting won't end, because we're fighting over the symptom. The symptom is out there. It's the other person. It's the drug. It's the condition. The answer is in the cause. It's in you. Whatever you hate, judge, want to fix and change in the world, go heal you. That's the answer. Quit wasting your time on this symptom, arguing with your friends. Go get a guide. I personally think the greatness movement is a great choice, but I don't care what you choose. Go get one. That's your answer. Quit wasting your time. Yes, somebody just said they really hate Trump. Well, what that tells me is whatever you hate about Trump, that's what you do in yourself. Read my chapter on denial and you'll see it. You do the exact same things, either directly or indirectly. Everyone who hates Trump is Trump. Everyone who hates Clinton is Clinton. It's the way it works. And if you can't see it, you need a guide. And that's why your life, you're not the hero in your life. And if you're in denial, and especially with politics, when I bring up Trump and Clinton, both sides, they're like, screw you, I'm not going to go learn about this, because they don't want to give up that victim power of hating the other person, because that's their own self-hatred. They hate themselves and they don't want to deal with that. And that's what's killing society. And I prove it in my book. I prove it. So please, whatever you hate, judge, and criticize, my heart breaks for you, because the reason you hate, judge, and criticize them is because you hate, judge, and criticize yourself. And I don't want that for anyone anymore. And that's where I'm going to end the show. Remember, if this show caused you stress, anger, anxiety, fear, depression, you should come Thursday night to the event. Go to thegreatnessmovement.com, buy your tickets right now, or go to Eventbrite and buy your tickets. Please join the Greatness Movement, subscribe, join one of the groups. It's only $99 a month to go through this process. Remember, whenever we judge, blame, and criticize somebody, we do that because we're seeing the darkest parts of ourselves. Go find a guide and reconcile those pieces of yourself you haven't accepted. But the opposite is also true. Whenever you see greatness in other people, you're seeing the greatness inside of you. Most people can't accept that. They hear that and they go, oh, I'm not that great. If you're struggling accepting your greatness, we can help you with that. And we can help you if you hate, if you judge, blame, hate, and criticize about people, if there are things that are driving you crazy like that, the greatness movement's the answer. You'll see the truth and you'll be set free. You won't hate them anymore because you'll stop hating yourself. So my heart breaks for anyone in either side of that who's in pain, that kind of pain, and is defiant and doesn't want to address it. That's what's killing society. That's the exact thing that's killing society. The denial and the defense against looking at that and getting the knowledge to go, oh my God, he's absolutely right. And that's what we need if we want to fix these issues. I really appreciate everybody tuning in tonight. I hope I upset you. I hope I stretched you. I hope you hate me, because that's a window into yourself. And I appreciate your love for watching me and being a part of this. So anyway, I hope to see you all Thursday night. Have a great night, everybody. And thanks again for tuning in.
I can do anything. I can reach any goal today. I can do what I want. I can be what I want to be.
Coach on Fire Radio.